Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. Welcome back to another News I Missed, where I go over news I missed. As always, a free way to support the channel is by leaving a thumbs up. And without further ado, let's get into some really weird, interesting news is what I'm going to call it. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse, it gets interesting, says a lack of regulatory clarity on crypto assets other than Bitcoin and Ethereum is preventing companies from using emerging payment technologies. In a new interview on CNN, Garlinghouse says Ripple's US customers are largely steering clear of using ODL, which used to be XRapid, which uses XRP to make money or move money across borders. He said, oftentimes when I'm speaking to customers and we're talking about our product that uses XRP and payment flows, they'll ask me about the regulatory dynamics. And we have had customers say, until there's clarity and regulatory frameworks, we're going to hold off. That has not been the case because of clarity and the certainties in countries, like I mentioned, like the United Kingdom or the UAE or Switzerland. You do have companies in those markets saying, absolutely, we're supportive, let's move forward. Backing it up a little bit, he just basically confirmed, here we go, that there are at least one company in each of these countries, in the UK, the UAE, and in Switzerland, who are going to be using XRP, unless I can't read English properly. Got that point. The other part is, it's never been actually announced or mentioned out loud why other companies weren't using XRP, hadn't come forward with using XRP. We speculated for a while that it had to do with the actual regulatory situation within the United States. And Brad Garlinghouse said a couple of weeks ago, he's like, we're going to move. We're freaking going to London, man. I'm tired of it here. Which isn't going to happen. I'm telling you, they're not leaving the United States. Or if they do, they'll have like another office somewhere else, but they're going to be based in the US. I just find it interesting when things like that actually come out loud, because usually you keep things like that kind of hush-hush. I spoke with a friend about something similar to this a couple of days ago. He was mentioning that Raoul Pal and a bunch of other people have begun to like speak up in support of XRP, or like say that they're looking into XRP, or that XRP isn't as bad as they thought. Like that kind of narrative is slowly creeping up. If you see me not that well, it's because the sunlight is slowly creeping into the room and I see it hovering over the camera. So if I look a little insane, or if you can't see me at all, it's because of the light, and I can't stop the sun because, you know, it's a big fireball in the sky. The point is, I found this interesting to be able to say this out loud. I still do not think there's going to be any regulatory clarity anytime soon for XRP or many other cryptocurrency assets. I'm not really sure why. Like, there's nothing really stopping regulators from simply saying this is A or this is B, and let's move kind of on from that. But they've made a huge spectacle out of this for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Anyway, I find this to be the most interesting. Basically saying the US hasn't given us the thumbs up for XRP, or other companies within the United States and who we've asked to use XRP, they kind of go, eh. But other countries, it's pretty much been a go. But we haven't heard any news about any of these companies in these, or whatever, in those other countries using it. But quite fascinating. And let's move on to, I mean, listen, the news that we're going to have doesn't move the market. And I find it so peculiar that it doesn't move the market at all. Let's move on. The Venezuelan army has begun to block reward mining to secure funds to stave off the effects of economic collapse within the country. In the latest steps towards digital currencies within Venezuela, the armed forces have established a new facility known as the Digital Assets Production Center of the Bolivarian Army of Venezuela, which has already started mining cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin to secure funds. A video posted on Instagram by Division of the Army shows the new facility running ASIC mining gear, which is used to solve cryptographic puzzles and proof of work to create Bitcoin. General Lenin Herrera, wow, that was a lot of R's for me, said the objective of block reward mining was strengthening and self-sustainability of our units of the Bolivarian. So listen, we have had going back in time. One of the main ideas within the Bitcoin idea and the Bitcoin mantra and the Bitcoin world was that eventually Bitcoin would become so big that countries would have no choice but to go, we need to use that. We've heard about several other countries on the planet who have, a portion of the news that we got was speculative, or it was from people within parliament who were saying, yeah, we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. That may or may not have come to pass because we aren't in the coffers of that particular country, so we don't know where that money went. The other side of the news is that the countries who are currently under sanctions, one of them very much being Venezuela, has been like, hey, our currency is kind of garbage, so let's do something about it. And they end up adopting Bitcoin and Litecoin. That was the news that we heard last year to get money within the country. Did nothing to the price. If anything, the price, I think, actually slumped a bit down that day, which I find a little weird. But the fact that we do have actual news that in Venezuela, they are creating their own cryptocurrency mining farms to be able to create Bitcoin, because this has to do with avoiding sanctions. A large reason why the economy collapsed has to do with if you impose enough sanctions and put enough barriers around enough things, you can collapse an entire country. That's an entire conversation for another time. However, yeah, I found the Instagram post, but when you get onto it, it starts playing a video, and I don't know if the video has like music that I can't have on here, so it's kind of like but here are the actual photos that they've posted around, which is quite fascinating because we know for a fact that this is happening. So one of the other things was that once a country began to adopt Bitcoin, the dominoes would begin to fall, and the other ones would simply go, hey, we got to do it too. Hey, money's tight. Let's all join the cryptocurrency craze. And this is also happening. The news that we get about price movements, typically, we've been told, has to do with PayPal's adoption, MicroStrategy's adoption, Grayscale's adoption, which are huge, which are big. But what does this tell you? What does this image right here tell you? Everything I just spoke about for the last 5 minutes, what does that say to you? They are accumulating Bitcoin to get around sanctions. What's the point of just having Bitcoin for yourself? They're getting all this Bitcoin to be able to use and transact with other countries. Which other countries? The countries who were also under sanctions. About 12 to 15 different countries who were also under sanctions. And even the other news that we've been getting about the relative thumbs up from other countries saying we're not going to ban it, but we're going to have regulations on top of it. I've assumed for a while that other countries are probably also accumulating Bitcoin as well. It's all but a given, just a matter of which countries are doing it now and which countries are going to be doing it next year. I find it so crazy that news like this doesn't push Bitcoin up at least by $1,000 at least. If we're talking about Bitcoin hitting 300,000, a smidge of 1,000 is a drop in the tiny bucket of where we're going to be going. Anyway, here's the actual Instagram for it. Oh yeah, okay, it froze on it because before like it was just showing a black screen. It's a video. I wish I could show it to you, but like cheesy music starts playing, and I don't know if Anyway. It's a video like showing them like connecting the machines and stuff like that. Like they're not just doing this. I mean, listen, they're probably doing it to be able to transact in Bitcoin within their own borders, but they've been cut off by a huge amount of the world because of sanctions. So for those of you who know, why this is so significant. When you get banks talking about that there's going to be a decline in the value of the US dollar next year, that Bitcoin is going to skyrocket, that other countries around the world are accumulating this currency that's been around for 12 years to be able to not only, I assume, make the country more stable, a little bit richer, and to be able to transact in money around the world because they've been cut off from that system. We're here. Like, we made it. Like, this is... And these we've only heard of maybe around 17 countries who are trying to do this. Lest we forget about the countries who contacted the International Monetary Fund to issue bonds against Bitcoin. So anyway, yeah, that's the first part of crazy adoption news, which won't even move the price, which is so sad. I think in the long run, of course it will, because as they're mining Bitcoin, they're going to be taking away portions of Bitcoin that actually entered the market or would have entered the market, and is going to go directly. Like, imagine, put it to you this way. Imagine if they have enough computing power that they're mining at least 1 or 2 Bitcoin a day, roughly. Let's say it that way. At the end of the year, 200, they have around 700 Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin ends up going to $300,000. How much money they've made just off of that small mining infrastructure. They continue building out. They continue doing more. And then eventually the countries, here's the interesting part, and I spoke with my friend about this as well. Imagine a scenario where the countries who've been hit the hardest by sanctions, I assume, have been collecting crypto since around 2014. Imagine Bitcoin goes up to $1 million, $3 million. Which countries then become the richest countries on the planet because they accumulated the new world reserve currency before anybody else could. Anyway, it's so fascinating to see. Like, we have video, we have video, we have pictures of this actually taking place. And I don't know if it's simply because of this particular country. I don't know if other people who released this information years ago, like the entire idea that they would have no choice in the future. They're going to have to adopt Bitcoin. I think we're about a good 10 to 12, 14, 15 years away from the US even thinking of saying out loud that they're going to be adopting Bitcoin, because that just completely tears all faith away in the US dollar. Other countries, however, who are already like standing in mud, they're going to go, we're going to do it. But the fact that no one talks about this is crazy. Doesn't it seem so logical? Even something like sensationalized news on your local news network, that they would talk about this country is adopting Bitcoin because they're under sanctions, but none of that ever really happens. And it's like, this is major news anyway. I'm going to continue on because I know some of you get it, but I think a lot of times people are like, well, who cares about that country? I'm like, it's the same exact thing when you have the idea that this person or people had 200,000 Bitcoin when Bitcoin was $1. I don't care that you can't buy a house for $200,000. Bitcoin goes up to 1,000 and you go, okay, well, they have a lot of money. Bitcoin goes up to 20,000 and they start making these billionaire rich lists. Bitcoin goes up to 1 million. Guess who's worth about $15-20 billion? It's all these kind of things. People never really look forward or really dig that deep. Okay, we're going to move on because I can Next up. A Cuban startup is now offering payment solutions in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin after, say it with me, sanctions. Young entrepreneurs, I can't even see the screen because the sun is so bright. Young entrepreneurs in Cuba have found solutions for the country's payment problems through cryptocurrencies after new sanctions imposed in November. According to a report published by Deutsche Welle, startups in the island nation are using Bitcoin, Ether, and other cryptocurrencies to fill the gap created after Western Union closed more than 400 branches in the country amid financial restrictions. What happens when you're told you can't send money? You can't receive money. We don't care who you are, what you do, where you're from. We're going to make sure that your country is cut off from the world economically. And lo and behold, there exists something that you can use if you just have the internet. Even more so, remember a couple of years ago, the companies who created things that you can now send Bitcoin by text. You can send it through radio signal. Imagine a world where someone doesn't like you and they cut you off from all of your friends. And then somebody goes, here's this. Use that instead. You can completely circumvent it and get around it because the people who are bullying you, they don't control it. They might have a huge amount of hash power at some point in the future, but they cannot control what goes in and out or if you receive it. This is huge. This is absolutely major. And I wish that other people had the optimism sometimes. And I know you're out there. I can feel you like banging on the table or be like me, because it is, we have entered, we are here. We've been here for a good chunk of change. The world where sanctions and regulations really have no place monetarily anymore, and they can completely be circumvented. This is what I was discussing before many moons ago about the SEC and the CFTC. A lot of what they do now, and I won't use the F word, futile, it's kind of nonsensical when you think about the actual meaning of cryptocurrencies. This is why we see cryptocurrencies are desperately trying to be integrated into the current system with the KYC and the AML, so that you can use cryptocurrencies, but use it on the old system. See that one? It has the same exact shiny thing you want, but just enter your name and your address and your blood type and how big your foot is, just so we have your information. It's all these things. You can use it. It's the same exact thing. I think, what are the other companies called, like BitPay and other things like that, where you can integrate Bitcoin into your systems and you can accept Bitcoin. You can do that with your phone. You can do that with a laptop. You can do that with a tablet. You don't really need these other services. We are in an interesting situation because I know, and you have to know at this point, this tells me that every other country who's under sanctions in any way, shape, or form has looked for alternatives and has probably found one in Bitcoin. The idea that you would think, or you could think, that you could take away Western Union and MoneyGram or anything else from a country to make sure to punish them for something, and all they have to do is go, well, that's fine, download a Bitcoin wallet and we'll start sending money that way, is major. Here's the actual article right here. It says startup in Cuba is evading evita con picos de bloqueo. Yeah, so it's evading the blockade from the United States using Bitcoin. Do you want, like, we're in the future. Like, this is total sci-fi stuff, but alas, here we are. I find stuff like this very fascinating. I find the prospects of economic inclusion to be insanely, will I use the word exciting? I don't know. If fascinating is the only word that I think I can really put forward with a lot of these things. I really wonder what other countries are also accumulating Bitcoin. Like, we know for a fact, one can only assume Cuba has Bitcoin. We can only assume that Venezuela also has Bitcoin. But I wonder what other countries within South America are like, hey, do you see what they're doing? We should start doing that as well. Let's maybe, if nothing else, let's try and buy 10 Bitcoin a week just so we have, just in case. Or countries in Africa, like was in Nigeria, who's like really big, and like the tech startup scene. Behind the scenes, there must have been discussions with their president or their prime minister to be like, we should start allocating at least 5,000 a day into this. It's all these things that really go through my mind, and of course they're happening, but we're not allowed to be in the room when those conversations take place. But anyway, that's mega adoption news. It won't do a thing for the price, which kind of destroys me inside. But it's interesting to see where this is going to go. If this is what's happening this year, imagine in 10 years from now when everyone's using Bitcoin, or Bitcoin is a store of value, or Bitcoin's being used as a hedge against inflation. Interesting future ahead of all of us. Just make sure that you are going to be along for the ride. Next up, can't even read the screen. North America is all set to get its first enterprise-grade Bitcoin mining pool, and thanks to a company called Titan. As Bitcoin continues to gain new highs, entrepreneurs are having a close watch on the opportunities in Bitcoin mining's market. Titan is popular in North America as a leading developer of software and services that deliver scalable crypto mining solutions. Yeah, anything else interesting? A part of the issue has to do with the fact that a lot of companies are not too thrilled that a large portion of the mining capacity and power resides within Asia. And I mentioned this years ago when we were having discussions about this. I was like, it's not their fault that they figured it out first. A lot of other countries that have been included into the world economic system simply brushed Bitcoin to the side and they went, it's not important. We have our own system. No one else really needs to use anything. But then you have 15 countries who are under sanctions, 4 more who are in trouble for other things, and you have other people who don't even want to really use the US dollar in the first place, start getting into something called Bitcoin, and then you have this really huge shift. So it's usually touted as one of the negatives of Bitcoin that Bitcoin is controlled by China and many mining pools within Asia. It's not their fault that they figured it out first and that everyone else is kind of figuring it out right now. We also had news a couple days ago, wasn't it? Like before Congress or the Senate or some big room of people, somebody was like, yeah, it's a problem that they're doing all of this and so on. And it's like, imagine if you had figured it out 7 years ago, just kind of done the exact same. But anyway, we've heard of a couple of North American mining farms, mining pools, mining whatever, that were expected to have popped up a couple of years ago, maybe like a year or two ago. It hasn't been that long, and I assume they're now popping up right now because, you also want to control the hash rate. You also want to make sure that it's not simply controlled exclusively by one country. But yeah, that's part of that news. Here's the actual press release for it. It says, Titan establishes first enterprise-grade Bitcoin mining pool in North America. Wonderful. Hope they do extremely well. We're going to see a lot more of these popping up over the next couple of years because everybody wants to control. It's really, I don't know. It's what's the phrase? Like first move basis, first mover opportunity, first mover advantage. I got it. I finally did it. Oh my gosh, I remembered words. That's kind of what it comes down to. And I assume if Bitcoin ends up hitting $300,000, we're going to have an avalanche worth of news talking about other companies who are going to be getting into this as well. Because, if you can just create money from your computer, why the fudge not? Let's move on. Next up, according to a Reuters report, the Swiss National Bank has successfully tested using digital money to settle large-scale transactions between financial institutions. The bank revealed on Thursday, but it has not decided whether to issue its own digital currency. That's probably a lie. The experiment, known as Project Helvetia, was run by the Swiss National Bank with Swiss operator, what's the word in English? Stock market operator 6 and the Bank for International Settlements. The central bank looked at using central bank digital currencies for wholesale transactions between financial institutions to make trading assets on a planned 6 exchange that will specialize in digital versions of conventional assets more efficiently. It doesn't matter. The point is, sure. I assume that every single bank in the world is testing a digital currency in some sort of way. It just seems completely logical at this point. Whether they're going to issue their own or create their own, I think they've all been created. I'm certain every single bank has their own central bank digital currency. They're just all waiting to see if China's is successful. If theirs is successful, everyone else is going to start rolling it out as well, saying, oh, now I think is the time to give better payments for consumers. It has nothing to do with that. It all has to do with control. It has to do with controlling consumers to see where their payments are going and also controlling the money within your country. You have to be able to make sure that your sovereign money is better than their sovereign money. So sovereign. But all these things are going to be inflationary. They're all going to fail. I give it about 10 years. We're not going to hear about them anymore. And further ado, all that stuff. Moving on. Also, like earlier this week, that was like kind of popular. I can't read the words. American entrepreneur and Ripple CEO. Why does it say American entrepreneur? I don't care about that. Brad Garlinghouse said that Bitcoin's dominance is not going anywhere, and the world's largest cryptocurrency will remain an important part of the overall crypto ecosystem. He added that most people treat cryptocurrencies as an inflationary hedge. I don't know what's going on with Garlinghouse. Maybe he took like one of those things like you see in the movie, like those like truth serums or those truth pills. He's been saying a lot of real stuff recently, like Bitcoin's gonna continue to be around because it's Bitcoin. And also the other thing we were talking, he was just saying is like, no one's using XRP here because we don't have any. I'm quite shocked I think maybe he's just also fatigued with everything that's going on, so maybe he's being a bit more real with things going on. But this was news because the CEO of Ripple heaped praise onto Bitcoin. This is not the first time he's done so. He's mentioned this many years ago. I would assumption he probably owns Bitcoin as well, because he's been in the cryptocurrency space well before Ripple. So I'm going to assume he probably holds some BTC, so he's probably also hoping that it'll also survive, and maybe he just has a more realistic view of the world that Bitcoin is probably going to be a more dominant force than other cryptocurrencies. So yeah, that was that news that Garlinghouse was like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to be around, and everyone was like, what? That's crazy. Anyway, let's move on. I can't read the words. Back in February, Timothy Lane, a deputy governor of the Bank of Canada, stressed that Canada had no need for a state-backed digital currency. But it would develop one anyway should the need arise. Now, as things have changed, Lane has suggested that the need may be arising sooner than the bank expected. Wow. From the beginning of the year to we don't need one to now we definitely need it. He said, while we don't know what the future may bring, we kind of do. We need to move forward to work out what a potential central bank digital currency might look like and how it could be managed if the decision were ever taken to issue one. They're going to issue one. Everyone's waiting for China. I don't really have to say any more on this subject. We get news every day about a new country who's like, we don't know, like maybe we might do one, but then we're thinking about not doing one, but we'll see what happens. They all have these things created. Remember the beginning of the year when they were talking about sending out the stimulus checks within the United States, and somebody slipped and was like, well, why don't we just use the digital currency to send it to everyone that way, or have them get it from like their local post office or something like that. And I was like, that's weird. You guys already have a central bank digital currency or a digital US dollar that would allow, because when you talk about sending out the actual checks, one would assume you're talking about doing it relatively soon. I don't think that person would have been like, oh, hey, let's wait 2.5 years to see if we make a central bank digital currency and then send out the checks to everyone. That statement was, we already got it. Let's use it. The payments can go out tomorrow. And I was like, Anyway, these are all created. They're just trying to figure out when to release them. They're still gauging public interest. A lot of the news that we've been getting has been that they're trying to they're planning on implementing them and using them through current banking systems and services and through institutions who are trying to send millions and billions of dollars back and forth. They're probably waiting to see if there's going to be public interest, which of course there's going to be because people are ridiculous. It's the same exact thing. Remember last year when we were talking about Libra and how bad Libra was and how terrible it was, and inflation and all these other things, and people controlling where your money's going? I saw about 300 comments, not joking, being like, where can we buy Libra coin? Should I invest in Libra coin? I'm going to be using Libra coin. I already use Facebook. And I was like, I just went over why it's bad and how you're going to be a product owned by Facebook, because they'll have all your information, they have all your messages, they have all your photos, they know where you are, they know who you talk to, and now you're giving them all of your monetary information. People are like, that's fine. So of course there's going to be people who back central bank digital currencies because they may simply not possess the mental capacity to understand why they're not good. I'm trying to say that in the nicest way possible. Anyway, that's the Canadian digital currency news. Once DM does their soft launch in January, I expect these to tumble out directly behind each other, trying to get people to use them, but they're all going to be garbage, so have no fear. Let's move on. I wish I could see the screen. It would help me out so much. Investors are hoping Bitcoin becomes a store of value, but the largest cryptocurrency is still very volatile. This was said by Tom Jessup, head of Fidelity Digital Assets, or FDAS, during the Reuters Global Investment Outlook Summit 2020 on Thursday. He said, "We use the words potential store value as Bitcoin is extremely volatile. and by any standards perhaps would not achieve the mantle of a true store of value. This was said by Jessup, whose company, a unit of Fidelity Investments, offers cryptocurrency trading and custody services for financial firms and corporations. His remarks were reported by Reuters. A lot of people have been peeved, annoyed, or try to sensationalize news like this when somebody who's in crypto says that Bitcoin is a potential store of value, or that Bitcoin isn't a store of value, or Bitcoin is so and so. We know that right now, as it stands, Bitcoin is currently not a store of value because it's volatile, because the price moves. The idea is, as more Bitcoin gets taken off the table, as the supply becomes very thin, as the price continues to rise because of inflationary currencies, and also just because of logic as time goes on, that Bitcoin's value will become not only higher, but more stable. And when it gets really stable, the price doesn't fluctuate as much, and then it basically becomes a new currency that is no longer volatile, and that's what we're working towards. So I'm not judging this man here for what he said. It's more so news always kind of goes, ooh, did you see what he said? He said Bitcoin's not a currency. And it's like, yeah, Bitcoin doesn't have all the properties right now of a currency, but it sure looks like it's heading in that direction. So I think we'll just move on from that topic. This happens about, I want to say, thrice a month, that someone comes forward and they're like, yeah, Bitcoin's currently very volatile, and we don't currently see the prospect of it being a store of value. And everyone's like, how dare you? And it's like, no, they're just telling the truth. Like, do you want to have the US dollar go through like 18% fluctuations over the course of a day? Probably not. It looks kind of good if you're day trading, but besides that, logic. Let's move on. What's this one? Oh, yes. So this, I think this solves it. Remember, like 3 weeks ago, I was like, why the fudge is OmiseGo constantly rising in value? It just didn't make a lot of sense. Ethereum-based scaling platform OmiseGo Network, or OMG Network, has been acquired. Jeez Louise, has been acquired by the venture subsidiary of the Hong Kong headquartered OTC trading firm known as Genesis Block. The acquisition was announced on the 3rd of December, with Genesis Block Ventures revealing plans to work with OmiseGo to build lending and trading platforms for the DeFi sector. What does that mean? That means that OmiseGo is probably going to be the platform that they're going to be using for the lending and the actual DeFi. The firm also intends to leverage its connections across Asia's blockchain industry to accelerate the development of the OmiseGo network and foster partnerships throughout the region. Genesis Block said it had engaged deeply with the DeFi sector this year and had built relationships with leading exchanges Binance and FTX. I'm pretty sure it was OmiseGo who had the, oh gosh, what are the letters? Memorandum of Understanding? I think that was it. Memorandum of something. I think with Thailand, and that the Thai government was supposed to be using OmiseGo as well. And yeah, capable of 4,000 transactions per second. So 200 times the speed of current Ethereum, which is going to be that way for a while. This makes sense. It all comes full circle. Why OmiseGo was going up? Because I assume behind the scenes, they were probably signing paperwork and people were like, okay, on the 3rd of December, everything will be completed as long as we sign. So I assume behind the scenes, people were buying up OmiseGo. Remember, like it was going up by 30% in a day. And I was like, there's no OmiseGo news. No one's talking about it. They haven't had a press release in about 9 months. It makes sense now. So, yeah, I guess we'll be getting more OmiseGo news relatively soon, especially if the price ends up going back up. I'm not really sure, but it's fascinating to see that OmiseGo is still in the news. OmiseGo's in the news. Wow. OmiseGo is in the news more than EOS. There were a lot of S's there, and I didn't know how to place them in my head. Fascinating. Good job, OmiseGo. Hope you continue OmiseGoing higher. And what is this? What's this one? Here's the actual press release. Genesis Block Ventures, GBV, acquires Cinca subsidiary OmiseGo Network. Pretty gosh darn cool. I do hope you all enjoyed. My voice is a little hoarse because I'm a character and I keep talking a lot. It's difficult making videos. I know a lot of people maybe don't know that. if you don't have a channel, talking a lot is like during the course of a normal day, you're maybe talking to like a couple of people, but like you have hours where you're just not kind of talking to anyone. Like even when I'm done making videos, I like talk to my friends about crypto, or like I go on walks and listen to podcasts about stuff. I'll think of something and I'll have like a long video chat with a friend about something. It's always, I think I just need to stop talking. I do hope that you all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope that it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all, every single one of you, once again for watching and or listening, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.